The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 325. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. Visit our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits. Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on the show today. She is the founder of Wandersnap, and she'll explain more about it on the show today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Jen Loong. Jen, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on here, Sheena. I started off in the traditional finance career, so I'm probably the last person to be an entrepreneur. But somehow through along the journey, I grew up between Hong Kong and Canada, and I've called Shanghai home for the last 5 years. I've been with Alibaba, Lululemon, China, and TOMS in China. So I've really had a really great opportunity working with some phenomenal brands and trying to set them up in the world's most populous country. I love social impact. It's also a commitment that I've made throughout my travels that for the rest of my career, I'm probably not going to do anything without the impact piece. So that's where Wandersnap comes in, and I'm excited to share with you guys what we're working on.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And Jen, what's your cultural background?
Yeah, I am typically confused when I'm asked that question. So I was born to Shanghainese father, and my mom was Hong Kong and Canadian, and she grew up on both sides of the Pacific Ocean.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
I think it's more confidence is within. It's not something that, at least I'm a believer, you don't go out to seek confidence. It's more that you gather enough data points. It's like a soup. At some point, you brew it long enough, the confidence just bubbles up. So maybe that's a bit controversial, but I don't really read confidence books or self-help books. I think it really comes from within, as long as you gather enough data points to let that soup brew.
Thanks for sharing that. And, I think it's great that you mentioned confidence is within, because a lot of people feel like they don't have that confidence, not realizing it's inside them. And like you said, it's just like brewing like soup, right? You just have to bring it out of you. And, there's different ways of bringing that out. So, I really like that you mentioned that, because I really like focusing confidence on more like an inner strength versus like confidence that's seen on the outside. I mean, once you work from the inside, then everything else will come out. So love that quote that you mentioned. And what would be your definition of self-confidence?
Related to the fact that it's from within, I think it's just a sense of fulfillment with yourself. Confidence for me, it's not so much about showing up a certain way or saying things a certain way, because all of those are external driven. All of those measure up to somebody else's expectations. So confidence, true confidence at least, if it genuinely brews within, then it's just an utter fulfillment and satisfaction with whom you are, what you embody. And it's a self-evaluation more than it is measuring up externally.
That's a great definition that you mentioned, especially, being an Asian woman, we're so great at comparing ourselves to others. I mean, that's where, our struggles are most of the time, because we feel like, we have to live up to someone else's expectations, which really, gives us that struggle of like, why can't I be that other person, or why am I not good enough, right? Not realizing it's just doing something that's better than before, right? And that's all that matters. So I really like that you mentioned that. And Jen, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
I guess to backtrack a little bit too, I can only imagine that what we're talking about just sounds so cliche that if someone doesn't feel confident, what we're saying is just be or find it from within. I understand that. And I think, for me at least, I gathered the data points off of my travels and off of being on the road and being uncomfortable, whether that's in North Korea or being by myself in Morocco. Just for me was finding those data points where I was truly out of my comfort zone, and then in my journey to confront that discomfort, I grow a little bit confident. I grow a little bit more self-secure. I grow a little bit more content with whom I am. And I really like when my mentor kind of put this analogy to me. And what she said was, your 20s, or at least the first decade of your professional life, so much of that is actually just about collecting dots. And if you collect enough dots, and then, remember when we were growing up, we had these drawing books where we would be just literally drawing lines between dots. And that's the exercise. As long as you have enough dots on the canvas, at some point you can look back and then the picture or pattern becomes clear. If you don't have enough dots on the canvas, however, then it's very hard to make a shape. So I grew up very introverted. I probably would be the least to speak in a big group. On weekends, I opted, doing puzzles or playing piano by myself. And it really was until probably even college when I started to experiment with this different side of a personality. And it didn't start off as confidence. It just started off as an experiment on, what would it be like if I just reacted to these scenarios or these social situations like this instead? And throughout college, whether that was competitions or, really going out and seeing the world and exploring places by myself, then that's when those data points started gathering. It's not to say that confidence is constant, that it's forever. I definitely still have days where doubt seeps in, especially as an entrepreneur. It's a daily battle against self-doubt. But at the end of the day, it's knowing whom you are, being content, and having this kind of quiet confidence brewing from within.
Thanks for sharing that. And I heard you mention you were in North Korea. I'm pretty sure that was pretty scary to begin with, and the fact that you were able to just set foot and be able to be in that environment. I mean, I'm sure it was quite an experience. And I like that analogy that you mentioned about finding data points, collecting the dots. I was also obsessed with those books that you can connect the dots. And, I like that you mentioned that, you just experimented with a different side of personality. You didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but you just went ahead and did it regardless of maybe how scared you are, or not realizing like you had no idea what's going to happen because of this. What's your life been like now?
Yeah, I think there's an added layer to that too, where there's obviously that book called Quiet, brilliant read. And I think the distinction is we all assume being confident to be extroverted, and it's almost like a personality attribute. But really, maybe we live in an extroverted world where the instant gratification of social media and likes and follows, and a lot of that almost reward extroverted behavior. And when I experimented with different hats, I'm a typical Gemini where I have days where I can wear the extroverted hat and I can play up to the room and the social setting. But really, the more special days are the ones when it's just quiet confidence within. That it is this peacefulness. There's no judgment. It's just you evaluating against your own standards and your own expectations. So dancing between both ends of that spectrum, I think, is probably my brand of confidence, if you would even call it that. And as a result, I've gravitated more towards careers and opportunities where I was encouraged to be extroverted confident, and whether that's BD heavy type roles, or constantly being on the road meeting new people and trying to bring them onto an agenda, or dancing on the other side where it really just takes the hustle, rolling up the sleeves, and just knowing that what strategy you came up with will work and you're going to test it out, which I think that's integritous to the entrepreneurial journey.
Thanks for sharing that. And I love how you mentioned that, you did start from within, and everything that was extroverted started coming to you, right? Versus you kind of seeking it, knowing just to work on yourself, knowing to work from within really makes a huge difference. And I think that's a great lesson to learn, because a lot of people feel like you mentioned, right? They see things on Instagram and Facebook and they see like a million likes and they're like, why can't I get that, right? What's wrong with me? And it has, it's not measured by maybe the number of likes or the number of followers. It's just how you are the day before and the day now and what the difference was, and everything else will fall into place. So I really thank you for sharing that. And to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
The biggest like you need is your own like. It's not the other million that's on the internet who are strangers. Often we talk about self-love so casually, and I have good days, I have bad days too. I would be completely candid, but the work really is at the end of it all, do you like and love yourself? Are you the best version of yourself? If you can be and you're at peace with that, the likelihood is you do show up as confident. You do show up as fulfilled around the people whom you care about. So I'd say get that like. And the most important one is the like, whether or not you would give yourself.
Thanks. And I really love that tip. The biggest like you need is your own like, because I think that's what's most important. We have to learn to love ourselves, be okay with everything about ourselves, whether it's good or bad. And once we do that, everything else it's not as important, right? Because you know your own worth, you know that you have what it takes to go out there and be the person that you are or live the life that you want. So love that tip that you mentioned. And if our listeners wanted to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Yeah, so I'm personally on Instagram. You can find me on Long Story Short, and that's long with 2 O's. And then as well, Wandersnap, our venture, that's spelled WANDR. SNAP is also on Facebook and Instagram. And a little shout out for it. It's our intent is for it to be Asia's Airbnb for photography. So for all of you who love traveling and adventuring in order to seek your inner self and build confidence, we'd love to be able to capture your next vacation. And we use part proceeds to teach low opportunity youth how to take photos so then they too can create art for a living. And one of the things that actually has been the most rewarding about the whole experience has been when we teach these youth photography. On the surface, it seems like technique, it seems like editing and just fundamentals to how you would frame a photo. But really the power is you see the glimmer in their eye and all of a sudden they can create. And when they create, the voice that they have builds confidence. All of a sudden, what they share matters and people respect and would even, give them props and encourage them to continue. So I'd encourage you to even think about confidence in terms of the formats that it shows up in and then how you can curate that. Photos is definitely even one of those.
Thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Jen, you can also head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Jen's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really just want to thank Jen for taking the time to share her story with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sheena, for setting this up. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. It was an honor having you on the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Want to learn how you can use podcasting to market your business? Download your free report by visiting our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits.